Hello. Come right on in. You're at Father Fish. Nice to have you with us.
A question from Von Jeton. Says, Father Fish, can you discuss how to make a balanced saltwater tank, please?
Exactly the same way you do a freshwater tank. In point of fact, most of the impetus for balanced freshwater tanks came from the saltwater side, and it came specifically from one group of aquarists who determined the importance of a deep substrate based on research that was performed 20 years ago on the health of the substrate under the coral reef, in which they determined that the health of the substrate, the top 8 to 10 inches of the substrate, correlated directly to the health of the reef above it. And so they determined, based on that research, to pay attention to and to work at developing a healthy substrate. In an effort to do that, the first step was to realize that the substrate needed to have some depth to it. You know, 1 inch of crushed coral wasn't gonna really do anything. The first thing they had to do was come to grips with the fact that that substrate, that bottom under the coral reef, when you got down an inch or two in it, was anaerobic. Whoa, anaerobic? I thought that killed things. There was a whole mentality about anaerobics that had built up, that it was something horrible, dangerous, and destructive. And what they discovered is that quite the opposite is true. Without anaerobics, it's impossible to have a healthy substrate, and therefore a healthy coral reef, or for our purposes, a healthy aquarium. If you do not have an aerobic layer, you cannot grow plants, have a balanced environment, have a stable long-term aquarium that's going to be able to survive without constant intervention. So, I've lost track of the initial question.
Well, how to set up a saltwater tank, how to establish a saltwater tank.
Yeah, so same thing precisely.
Yeah.
You start with a layer of mud. And the very best way to do that is to get some mud from the sea, from a saltwater body. Barring that, you can buy it, and barring that, you can make it. Virtually any dirt will do, just as with freshwater. If you can, the benefit of being able to get mud from the ocean, from a saltwater body, is that you're bringing in a whole host of life forms that are going to establish very quickly and very easily the life in that system. But you can kind of start from scratch. You can start with some dirt, get it in there, cap it with sand, and I would do an additional 1 inch layer of sand. Do 3 inches of sand over an inch of dirt, and then add water and get some filters going. Now, you cannot use sponge filters in a saltwater tank because it's messy. It creates bubbles. The bubbles burst. The water splashes. It may be very teeny tiny splashes, but it builds up. The water evaporates. It leaves a salt incrustation, which in time becomes a mess. So what you want to do instead of the sponge filter is a pump, a small water pump to circulate the water. Now you can attach that pump to the sponge filter, so it's pulling water through the sponge. The only issue with that is that it's going to become clogged up very, very quickly. Won't take long at all. I've never done it reverse. I've never done it where I push water through the sponge, but that might actually work better. Somebody might experiment with that. Maybe I will, given the option. But water flow is critical in salt water. You do not ever want to have still, not unmoving salt water. You want to have water flow, and you want to have two sources of water flow. So one little pump is not enough. You need two little pumps. And you want them crashing the water against each other, so you don't create a whirlpool. The problem with the whirlpool is it creates gaps. It creates dead zones where water is not flowing, like down in the corners. And that'll become literally a dead zone where stuff will die. In the ocean, we see it here in the Gulf, where there will be a dead zone, where everything will be CO2 and everything below it will die. That's basically what red tide is. Red tide creates a dead zone. It burns all the oxygen out of the water, and everything below it suffocates. You want to. It's critical to have moving water, and you want to have every cubic inch of that water moving, not just part of it. Part of it is not all of it. Part of it is part of it. You want to have all of it moving. The way to do that is with two pumps shooting water directly at each other. So it creates a turbulence that goes everywhere. And it works. So just do it that way. What else? That's about it. When you start populating it, you want to start bringing in as much microfauna as you possibly can. That's that's the basis for the system is microfauna. Don't worry about keeping it sterile and crystal clear with a few fish. If you can do that, you're going to fail and it's going to crash. You want to bring microfauna in it to give it life so it can balance itself and become stable. Yeah.
Well, I hope you found something you've never seen before. Have a great day. Nice to have you with us. Come on back.